Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be my review and tutorial using the brand new Kaleidos Futurism VII Sashimi City palette. I know my review is not first because this company does send a lot of PR, but I did purchase this product myself. I recently got it and I wanted to share my thoughts with you. Before we get into the video, if you're new here, I'm Yori. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Hope you're going to like this one. Consider subscribing and joining my makeup family. Thank you so much to my first 5 commenters from my last video. I really appreciate you showing my channel lab love. Those that have YouTube channels will be indicated by the YouTube logo and linked in the description box down below in case you're looking for some fun new channels to watch. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into the palette. The Futurism VII palette does follow the traditional Kaleidos eyeshadow palette format where you have a mini palette with 6 shades. They did deviate from that a little bit when they got into the Escape Pod collection. This one does retail for $24, has a 12-month shelf life, is cruelty-free and vegan, made in the PRC, and you do receive 7 grams of product. Does retail for $24 as all their Futurism palettes do. This is what the outer packaging looks like. It's very cute. It's a brand new modification where the palette kind of slides open this way and the packaging unfolds and the palette would be nestled inside. When you get the palette out, it is the hard cardboard plastic with this tri-fold design where you do have a mirror at the top and your shades are included on this plastic insert. The difficult thing about the insert is depending on which way you place it, you may confuse the shade names, although in this specific palette, the shades are pretty self-explanatory. You do have 6 total shades, 4 of them are mattes, and you do have 2 shimmer eyeshadows. Now, a lot of people have been giving this palette mixed reviews where they're saying that the colors are not buildable in the traditional way of doing eyeshadows where you work light to dark. So what I decided to do in this video is to work from dark to light shades and create this look on my eye to demonstrate how the different eyeshadows perform and give my thoughts on the palette overall. I'll go ahead and show you some swatches and let you know right off the bat that in my opinion this palette is slightly different than other Kaleidos palettes in that there are no foiled shades in this palette. This one does have 2 shimmer shades, but those are more like topper shades. They have a more sheer color base, and so I prefer to use them as toppers, although they can be built up. But if you've heard about the Kaleidos metallic foiled formula, they don't have a version of that in this specific palette. The mattes do remind me of the typical Kaleidos formula, whereas their eyeshadows are a little bit soft, they are a little bit powdery, but that does in turn make them very blendable. I'm going to show you some swatches of the entire palette on my arm, and then we should get right into the eye look where I will be sharing some of my thoughts. Aside from the topper shades, the only comment that I really had or criticism with regard to the color selection are the 2 outer shades, which are called Promenade and Soy Sauce. In my personal opinion, those 2 are not really very distinguishable. I can use them interchangeably, and so I would have preferred to have seen one deeper shade in the palette or another metallic in place of those 2 outer shades. I don't want to be too repetitive, so let's go ahead and get into the eye look as I will share a lot of my thoughts during the demo. So today we're going to be working with the Kaleidos Futurism VII Sashimi City palette, and this is what she looks like. I've already done one eye off camera, and I'm going to kind of share my thoughts about the palette as I work with it. I have, of course, already primed my eyes using the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion, just the regular one. I'm working with my Bristles Beauty brushes for this video as well. This is the EO2RL, and I'm going to start by using the shade Promenade. It is one of the darker shades in the palette, and the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I buy all my own makeup, obviously, with very few exceptions. Every once in a while a brand will send me something, but I'm obviously late to the review of this specific palette. They do send a lot of PR, and so a lot of people have already worked with these palettes, and these are actually getting surprisingly poor reviews. And a lot of the complaints I'm hearing is that the shades can't really be worked with if you kind of start with the lighter shade and work your way to the darker shades. They're saying that you can't create a gradient that way. They're saying that it's a lot harder to get the shades to layer, and if you apply the deeper shades once you've put down some of the lighter shades, you can't really build up the color intensity. So what I'm doing in this video is I'm working in reverse fashion and applying some of the deeper shades first, and then I'm going to layer the lighter shades over them. So you can see Promenade is applying really well. It's layering quite smoothly on the outer corner of my eye. Next, I'm taking the shade Salmon Skyline, and I'm going to apply that, working my way inward. You can see this is a really peachy, salmony kind of color. It's really named quite appropriately, I would say. And I'm using the Bristles E03DM. The numbers on these, I'm not exactly sure what they stand for. I'm gonna have to visit their website and see if there's any kind of rhyme or reason to their naming scheme, because they're kind of longer names to say when you're doing makeup. Anyways, you can see the shade is layering over it really, really well, but because the gradient is a little bit intense, meaning the original shade I put down was a little bit deep, you can see that there's kind of a harsh line that forms in between. And so I'm going to do small circular motions right where that boundary is to diffuse that out. This would of course be a lot easier to do if I didn't set my eyeshadow base, but I don't typically set my eyeshadow primer potion just because I like my shadows to be a little bit intense, and I do like it to be just a tiny bit tacky to get the shadows to adhere best to my eyes. My eyes are hooded, and so it's always best to have as few layers as possible. And so I haven't really been setting this base in a really long time. So now I'm going to go into that original brush and kind of blend the two shades together, and you can see that I get a really nice soft gradient when working with the shadows like that. Now, I'm not saying that this is the way you should do your makeup. Usually I do my eyeshadows lightest to darkest unless I'm doing a cut crease, and then I'll go in the reverse. But since there's already a lot of reviews and videos on this palette already, I figured let me do something different so that if you did already buy the palette and you're struggling, then you can find a way to work with it better. So now I'm taking a larger blending brush, E01DL. And with this one, I'm going to work with the lightest shade in the palette. This one is called Gourmet. And this is the one that I'm going to use just on the outer edges of the entire look. And I'm going to diffuse into my inner crease to work as a transition for the shimmer shades. And again, in that case, it's working quite nicely. This one is a lot more similar to the prior shade in terms of depth. And so you can see that I'm not having any issues blending, and I'm getting a really nice, soft, diffused blend. Now I have all the colors laid down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just run this larger brush now that all the product is kind of off of it, and just blend the entire eyeshadow area. Now this isn't going to be it for the mattes, so I'm going to leave it like that, and I will go back and re-intensify as I need. I want to use some of the metallic shades, and I'm going to start with the shade Pink Ginger, which is that one right there. It's super beautiful. This one has a duochrome like pink to gold shift, which I really like. I'm using the Bristles Beauty E04RS. Now I want you to see how this shade applies with a brush, but eventually I am going to go in with my finger. So I'm just going to use packing motions, and I'm applying that kind of in the center eyelid area. Now another thing is that if you're familiar with the Kaleidos eyeshadow formula, their metallics are so beautiful, and both of the metallic shadows that are in this palette are more like topper shades. So they're not going to have a lot of base color, but they have beautiful shimmers. So in that case, if you were kind of expecting that really metallic foiled kind of shadow, that's not really what you're getting here. It's really more of a topper shade, but they are beautiful toppers, both of them. You can see I have them both in the eye that's complete, and I find that they perform really well. I did find that I get a lot less fallout when I'm working with this shade with a brush, and you'll see once I start working with my finger, I'm going to get a little bit more fallout in that case. So this is the intensity that I'm getting with a brush. I am going to go in with my finger now so you can see how well I can build it up. So that's what it looks like, and I'm going to intensify it. I'm pressing firmly on my eyelid and kind of swiping a little bit as I build up the color. So you can already see how much more intensity you're getting if you apply the shade with your finger. Now, because my natural crease is, really hooded, I'm actually going upward into my eye socket now, and I've gotten quite comfortable putting shimmer shadows up there. I think it's really flattering, and it opens up my eyes, and it also lets you appreciate the shimmer shades a little bit more that would otherwise be hidden by the hood of my eye. So now I'm just kind of smoothing that out with the brush and using the P06 RF brush from Bristles Beauty, I'm going to go into the second metallic shade that is called Penthouse. This one is a beautiful champagne gold shimmer. I really like this one, and I'm going to apply it to my inner corner. And again, I'm kind of following the line of my eye socket upward as I apply it. I am going to run this one on my lower lash line when I do the lower lash for this look. So I'm going pretty far into the inner corner with this one. So you can see the shades are really quite sheer, and that's why I refer to them as toppers, but they are beautiful, beautiful toppers. I'm not sure if you can see, but with this one I have a lot more fallout. It's also the area of the eye that I was working on. I'm going to also apply this one with my finger. I'm going to use my pinky since I'm going to go right into the inner corner of my eye, and I'll use a makeup wipe to wipe away any fallout that I get. So there you have that intensity. So I'm going to go back into the pink ginger shade and I'm going to layer it over. So as you can see, these are more sheer colors. They're still beautiful, but if you were expecting kind of foiled shades, then you would kind of be caught off guard if you purchase this palette. What I would say, if you want to get more of that metallic look, then I would put the matte colors underneath to function as a base so it doesn't look as sheer, and then apply the topper over it, and that would give a very, very beautiful look as well. So now I'm just blending in between the two, and I'm going to go into the shade Gourmet, which is the lightest shade in the palette, and that larger blending brush, and I'm going to just diffuse the edges a little bit. I'm going to apply a little bit more of the Salmon Skyline color. I'm going to be sharing kind of my opinions on the Rare Beauty products, and the lipstick that I have is, you know, kind of like a pumpkin orange shade, and I want to make sure my eye look kind of goes with that. So I'm making sure to build up that Salmon Skyline a little bit so that it's going to pick up in my lip color. I'm kind of planning ahead for that one. Now, obviously, it's not necessary for you to use every color in the palette. I just wanted to do that so that I can showcase the performance of the shadows. I also want to deepen that outer V, so I'm going in with the Promenade shade. And personally, I'm finding that it's layering fine. It's just not that deep of a color. And then the other shade that's there, the one that I haven't used yet, is called Soy Sauce. It's not that much different. And so if you look at the swatches, I think that they could have benefited from making just that one shade be a little bit deeper, because in my opinion, it's not that distinctive to warrant having them both in the palette. So just to make sure I use every shade, I am going to go ahead and go into that Soy Sauce shade, and I'm going to apply it just in the outer V and kind of lining my outer lashes with it, but I'm not being careful or precise with that in any kind of way. Like I said, these shades are so similar. I honestly would have preferred a deeper brown color in this regard. All right, now because of the blending, we did lose some of that intensity of the pink ginger shade going upward into the crease, and so I'm just going to build that right back up so that it matches the other eye. And you can see that it layers over the matte shades that I put down beautifully. This is the basis of the eye look. I'm going to line my upper lash line using Marc Jacobs Earthquake. My mascara today is this Tristique one. I got this in a box. It's a Good Vibes mascara, but really it's not that relevant since I am going to apply false lashes, do my face makeup, and come back to do the lower lash line. As you can see, I have finished my face makeup. I am doing a review of the hits and misses from the Rare Beauty line, so keep an eye out for that. Probably that video is going to be up before this one, but this is how we're going to finish the eye look. And what I did was I took the shade Soy Sauce on a pencil brush. This one is a Bristles Beauty E05 PS. And I'm going to go ahead and run that under my lower lash line. And I'm focusing that on the outer 2/3 of my eye. This is a pretty firm brush, and so it's packing on the color about as intense as it could possibly get. Now I'm going to go ahead and go in with the E03DM, and I'm going to use the shade Salmon Skyline because I wanted to bring in a little bit more orange vibes to my look because of my lipstick choice today, and I'm going to diffuse out that shade using this color. Again, because this brush is firm, it does help blend out the gradient between those two shades. I'm also going to go ahead and blend this color upwards as well. See, kind of applying that just highlights my lip color choice, which I really like. Now I'm going to take this tiny shader. It's the P06RF, and I'm going to take the shade Penthouse. Such an interesting name for the shade, but it kind of makes sense because, you know, it's kind of got the glitz and glamour that we associate with penthouses. And I'm going to apply this on my lower lash line and then intensify the inner corner to really brighten that up. This is a really pretty inner corner color. You do have to be careful because it does give a little bit of fallout. If you're comfortable with spraying your brush, that would minimize that, but I cannot do that. I've talked to you guys about that already and how that will actually make my eyes shadows crease worse, and it makes my eyes water, which then exacerbates the problem. So I have stopped spraying my brushes. If I ever have an issue with a shade flaking too much, then usually I'll just use a sticky base like the Too Faced Glitter Glue, or I've been meaning to try out the one from NYX. Alright, so making sure I'm nice and even, I'm then going to take the larger blending brush and just a teensy tiny little tap into that salmon skyline shade and then brush it underneath to make sure everything is nicely diffused. And then we'll finish off the lower lash line with the same liner and mascara. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing how I created the eye look. I do love how it turned out. I think it looks beautiful. If you're interested in the rest of my face makeup, as I mentioned, I'm doing a Rare Beauty review, and so a lot of the products are from Rare Beauty, and you can check out that video if you're interested. But for this specific video, I wanted to focus on the eye look, which I think is just beautiful. And working with the palette the way that I did, I was able to create a very nice look relatively simply. In general, I think this color story is a really nice addition to the Kaleidos collection because for the most part, the Kaleidos collection tends to the bolder, more bright color stories, and this one is a little bit more neutral, a little bit more wearable, and definitely appropriate for fall. So I think it's a good addition in terms of color story, especially if you were interested in trying out the brand, but a little bit intimidated by those other color stories. This would be a really nice place to start. Just be aware that you will not have a sample of that metallic foil shadow that they're so good at making. The only other palette that I would consider to be more on the neutral side would be the Cyber Bronze palette, which was part of their first launch. Also very appropriate for this time of year, and that one does include a metallic shadow that is more foiled. So if you were interested in trying out that formula, then perhaps that palette would be a better place to start. My personal favorite absolutely remains the Astro Pink palette. There's just something about that color story and the way the colors fit together. I just love it. I think it's really special, and every time I wear that palette, someone without fail will ask me what I'm wearing on my eyes. So if you like more pinks, mauves, purples, blues, the Astro Pink palette is an absolute beautiful place to start and is my favorite palette within the Kaleidos collection. That being said, I do like this one. I will enjoy having it in my collection. It's not going to be my favorite, but as I said before, I think that there is a place for a color story such as this one in the collection. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on the palette, as well as noting how I'm working with it, at least at the present time, to give you some idea on how you could work with it if you were having the issue of building up light to dark, where the shadows were not layering on top of one another very well. So this just gives you an alternative way of working with it if you did already buy it and you wanted to hold on to it. Other than that, that's everything for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, as I would love to have you. If you have any questions that I didn't touch upon in the video, leave those in the comment section for me down below. I hope you'll join me over on my Instagram. I've been sharing my day-to-day over there a lot more frequently, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I also give heads up when I upload new videos, which YouTube doesn't always do, so following me on Instagram is a good way to keep up with me. Thank you again for spending a few minutes of your day with me. I really appreciate it. I hope you're doing really well, and I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.